Welcome to Love Thy Lawyer, where we talk with attorneys about their lives and careers. I'm your host, Louis Goodman. Today, we welcome Joseph Cox to the podcast. Mr. Cox practices criminal defense in Alameda County. He is a member of the ABA Criminal Law Section, California Attorneys for Criminal Justice, and the National Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys. Most importantly, he's one of the lawyers who I always see when I go to court, and it's always fun to see him. Joseph Cox, welcome to the Love Thy Lawyer podcast.
Good afternoon, Lou. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Where are you speaking to us from right now?
I am in my office in Livermore, California.
How long have you been practicing law?
I have been practicing law for 13 years now.
Can you describe what kind of practice you have? How do you describe your practice?
I describe it as all we do is criminal defense and nothing else.
Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Oakdale, California. It's a little farm town about an hour east of Livermore.
Is that where you went to high school?
Yes, I went to Oakdale High School.
What was your experience in high school like? You were pretty active there, as I recall.
Yes, high school was great. Oakdale is a very small town, or used to be pretty small, very close-knit community. It's actually, to give you a sense of what it is, it's known as the cowboy capital of the world. So, yeah, I was very active in sports, played football, baseball, basketball, and then did a lot of stuff outside of sports as well, out there in the farm town.
Well, when you graduated from high school in Oakdale, you went to college. Where'd you go?
First, I went to Modesto Junior College down in Modesto. And then after that, I went to Florida to a school, Lynn University, which is in Boca Raton, Florida, South Florida, just above Fort Lauderdale. And I went there, hadn't planned on going there. I actually was going to plan on staying somewhere in California, but I was fortunate enough to get a baseball scholarship. So I packed up and went back to Florida for a few years.
That's a long way from home. What was that experience like?
It was great. It was a little bit difficult being away from home. I think my mom took it the worst out of everyone. And of course, I missed all those home-cooked meals. But it was a great experience. And down in South Florida, it was great. You know, the weather was great. The beach is there. And just the whole experience of playing sports, playing baseball in college, and traveling around on the East Coast, which I had never been to. And so it was great to actually see the other side of the country.
So you were playing baseball for the Fighting Knights?
That's right. Yep. And it was a great experience. And they actually, the year that I graduated, the next year, they ended up winning the national championship. So I missed it by 1 year.
When you graduated from college, you went to law school. Did you go straight through, or did you take some time off between college and law school?
No, I took about a year off. I was down in South Florida, kind of just wondering, baseball was done and wondering what I was going to do with life. And I remember calling my dad and saying, hey, I think I need to, this beach stuff I'm done with it. And I had thought about law school when I was in high school, but really didn't put much thought into it because I just wanted to play baseball the rest of my life, which did not pan out, obviously. And so him and I talked, and within about 3 days, I had everything packed up and drove straight back to California, lived with my parents it was about 9 months or a year, saved up some money, worked for my brother, and then went off to law school.
And where'd you go to law school?
I went to Thomas M. Cooley Law School in Lansing, Michigan.
Now that is a very different experience than being in Florida, and a different experience than being in California. So how did you feel about being in all that snow and cold?
You know, I didn't mind it because I love the snow. The only thing that was difficult to get used to, and I never got used to, was the wind. And over there, when the wind picks up, when it's cold and snowy, it just pierces through everything. And so that was the only thing that was a little bit difficult to get adjusted to, but I loved Michigan. I think it is a beautiful state. So I didn't mind it.
When did you first start thinking about being a lawyer? You kind of touched on this a little earlier, but when did you know that you wanted to be a lawyer? And then when did you actually decide, okay, I'm going to, really do it and make the application process, take the LSAT, send in the money, find a law school?
So I had thought about it first, and I don't remember why, but I think and it was in high school, I know that I thought about it, but then again was like, well, that's just secondary because I just want to I want to be a professional athlete. Then reality hit at the end of college, and then it really kind of sunk in. I think it was 2007 or 8, and there weren't too many jobs. I remember the country wasn't doing so great with the job opportunities out there. And so I had talked to my dad. I remember waking up one morning and then I talked to my dad. And then when I came home, talked to them a little bit more and just said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And I just decided once you start, there's no turning back. So I started all the application process, started doing the LSAT and just took off from there. And I remember I kept getting waitlisted on all the schools. And I kept thinking to myself, why am I getting waitlisted? I didn't think I was that dumb. And I remember working, I remember working for my brother, and I think I was out of service or something. And I kept getting letters from schools. And I told my mom, and I don't even think I applied to where I went to law school. I remember telling my mom, I said, I'm just sick of getting these waitlisted. Whatever school says they'll take me, send it back. Send it back, and I'll go to that school. And I remember coming home, and I don't remember if it was my mom or dad saying, hey, you're going to be going over to a school in Michigan. And I said, all right, cool. And so that's how I landed over.
When you got out of law school, what was your first legal job?
I worked for law offices of Tim Reen, and I actually externed him for my last semester of law school. And then he asked me, what are your plans? And I said, I have no plans. I was going to start applying to jobs. And he says, well, why don't you come around the office? And I think maybe we can find a spot for you. And I said, okay. So that's where I landed.
And basically you're still there, right?
Yes, I am. I've been here since my externship in 2010 or 11, early 11, joined Tim and Melissa, and then Melissa and I took over in 2016 and still going.
And I would note that Melissa Adams has been on this, and we've interviewed her as well.
Yes, she has.
What is it that you really like about practicing law? What is it that keeps you practicing law, and what is it that keeps you practicing law where you are?
I think the thing about Well, first off, I think it goes back to when I was in law school. I did not really like the other classes that didn't involve some type of criminal law, and I really liked constitutional law, evidence, and criminal law. So when I fell into this externship with Tim, I fell in love with criminal law. And so I think that what I really like about practicing specifically criminal law are the tools that we have to assist clients. And I like the way that you can kind of get just creative in resolving issues and cases. The law allows, especially like the diversion statutes and stuff. And even if there isn't a diversion statute, there's ways that you can create your own type of way to resolve a case. And that's what I really like about practicing criminal law.
If a young person were just coming out of college, would you recommend the law as a career, and specifically criminal?
I would say it's kind of yes and no. I would say that, like, if I had to do it all over again, I would want to know what I'm getting into. Thankfully, it was something that I really enjoyed. And so if it's something that you're saying you're just going to do, I would say you need to go and maybe do an internship somewhere to see how it is. We have a bunch of interns that we take in every year, not a bunch, a couple, and kind of just show them that this is what the real life is like. We have them do projects working on, our biggest cases that we have in the office. I take them to court with me. We introduce them to judges. We go into judges' chambers. They sit there if we are talking about a case. And then afterwards, their eyes open up. And I say, if this is something that if you enjoyed doing, going to court with us, and you enjoyed what you've been exposed to for the last 6-7 months, then yeah, go for it. If not, then I would say don't.
What about the business of practicing law? How's that gone for you? And what's your comment about that?
Well, I know you've got years and years of experience in this, and so it was a bumpy road, but the business side of it kind of just, I would say in the beginning, whacks you in the face. And you're going from just wanting to practice law to now practicing law. And then on top of that, trying to run a business and make sure that, your staff is paid and all your bills are paid, and realizing that you don't have a guaranteed paycheck. And so running the business side of it is something that it's difficult. And I think a lot of people don't realize that is that you're constantly, I don't know if you'd call it hustling, but you're constantly just trying to keep the lights on, if you will. And then the practicing the law part of it is the fun part.
Yeah, I think that law schools really fail us in the sense that they don't really teach us much about the business of practicing law. They don't give us any education or experience in terms of what it takes to run a law practice. And I think that's fine if you're going to go into a really big firm or go work for the government. But if you're going to work in a small practice or a solo practice in any field of law, I don't think law schools give us very much preparation for that. And I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. When you come out and you just, like you said, unless you're going to go work for someone or a government or where you're not responsible for any of that type of running the business. But if you are, and fortunately I wasn't in the beginning, but then once we did the transition and Tim was showing us, it's like, oh man, I don't know if I just like doing the fun stuff, the practicing law, this business stuff. It's difficult. It really is.
What do you think is the best advice you've ever received? And then I'll ask it another way, which is, what advice would you give to a young attorney just starting out? And you could answer it either part of that question or both.
I would say the best advice that I've received is be honest, and your reputation is everything. And I think that if there's any doubt in your honesty, that reflects on your reputation. And that was one thing I was always taught, is that, your reputation is everything, especially in a courtroom. And we deal with the same people, with DAs and stuff. And I just think that your reputation is everything. And someone that is starting out, I would tell them a couple things. One, just that is, you do not want to start off by having a bad reputation, because that will stick with you throughout your career. And I would say they call it practicing law for a reason. And to anybody that is just starting out, you're never going to know everything, and you are constantly going to be learning stuff. It's like when I sit in court and I just listen, and I can't tell you how many times I just learn something new. Or a topic that I thought I knew something about, and then the attorneys are arguing and the judge gives his or her ruling, and it's like, okay, well, I didn't know that. And I thought I knew that. I didn't know that. And so anybody starting out, you're not going to know everything. You will never know everything. And so I just think that it's something that you have to just be mindful that it's okay not to know everything. Just try your best and absorb as much as you can and be honest. That's it.
I think that's a really great comment, especially certainly about the reputational stuff, but also about the notion that we are practicing law. We are always learning something. We are always finding out something new about the law, about how things work, about ourselves. I think that's probably the thing that I like the most about practicing law is there's something new every day.
Yeah. Isn't it fascinating? It's just like, wow, yeah. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that.
Do you think the legal system's fair?
I think for the most part, but I also think it's kind of fair and unfair depending on which side of it you're on. As a defendant, if you get a favorable ruling or you get a favorable outcome, you think it's fair. As a victim, you may not think that it is fair. And so we do the best that we can on both sides to have it fair. But, I think for the most part, I think it is fair, but equally unfair, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does make sense. I think that we, at best, get sort of a rough justice out of the criminal system anyway. I mean, I don't know too much about the rest of it, but I think that the court system ultimately comes up with some sort of rough justice. Let me shift gears here a little bit. What's your family life been like, and how has practicing law affected that? How's your family life fit into the practice of law?
So my family life, my wife, she's also an attorney. She's an associate general counsel for a tech firm. And so we, of course, in the beginning, we just worked. We didn't talk too much about work just because it's something that kind of we go home and it's just like try to shut it off, even though never shut it off, but at least stop talking about it. And then after we had our boy, who's now 3.5 years old, well, right after we have him, you realize, life changes and these hours get cut down, or at least during the day, but you get back to it maybe in the evening. And so it's been different with now, as a father and wife as a mother, trying to spend as much time as you can as a family at home and try to leave the work at work.
What sort of recreational things do you like to do? I know that you're an active outdoorsman. Can you tell us a little bit about that aspect of your life?
Yeah, so any chance I get, which is pretty often, I like to spend my time up in the mountains, specifically the Sierra Nevada, up near Pinecrest or up higher than that. And so I like to fish and I like to hunt. And then in the wintertime, I do snow biking. I convert my dirt bike into put a ski on the front and then put a track on the back. And it's called snow biking. It's a fairly new sport. And so that's what I love to do. And I got my wife enjoying it somewhat. And we go up to the mountains as much as we can.
What sort of things keep you up at night?
Oh boy, making sure, or I guess just confirming that I did things, even little things like calendaring. Oh my gosh, I got retained on that case and it's supposed to be on in 4 days, but the client had a different date. Did I call the court? Just want to confirm, did I call the court? Or what I like to do is email just for this specific reason. When I wake up 2 or 3 times a night, check my email to confirm, okay, did I do that email or something calendared? Or what I do is I will write notes to myself throughout the day on my phone. And then if the note is not there, then I know that the task was done. So then I'll wake up at night and check my notes. Like, did I do this? Did I do that? Okay, it's not in my notes section. That type of stuff. It's just,
I do know that kind of stuff.
You know exactly what I mean. So that type of stuff is usually what wakes me up a couple times a night.
Let's say you came into some real money, several $billion, $3-4 billion. What, if anything, would you do differently in your life?
Well, I know I wouldn't be living here. I would probably be I would try to buy some mountain range, I'm sure, and go live in the mountains and that has plenty of snow and plenty of wildlife. And that's probably where I'd be.
Let's say you had a magic wand. There was one thing in the world, the legal world or otherwise, and you could change one thing. What would that be?
I thought about that. And I think there's 2 things really, but the one that, the second one that I would say was, a drug problem that we have in America. But I think that, and this just goes back to, I think, being a criminal defense lawyer. I know this is impossible, but just carrying mental health so many times. And this, just meeting with clients and their families that have just been dealing with this for our clients, their entire life. And sometimes it's so sad. And you wish that you could just heal all their pain and take all that away from them. And I've always thought if we could just cure mental health, I just think it'd just be much, much better world for all.
Let's say you had a Super Bowl ad. There was one thing that you could put out there. Well, it doesn't even have to be one thing, but if you had a Super Bowl ad, 60 seconds on the Super Bowl, you could put out any message to a huge audience. What would you like to say or advertise?
Be nice, be kind, especially when you're dealing with someone like a stranger or someone you've never met or even people that you do know, because you don't really know what that person is going through in their personal life or professional life. They may sound good, look good, but just constantly try to be kind. That's what I would say.
Joe, if someone wants to get in touch with you, perhaps to be represented by your office or another attorney had a question for you, what's the best way to get in touch with Joe Cox?
Our website is I would say, the easiest way. And then it has our phone number on there, www.criminallaw.net. And that's just with one L. I would say that's the easiest way.
So if we were to Google Joseph Cox or Joe Cox in Livermore or Modesto, we'd come up with you and your firm?
That's correct. Yes, we have an main office in Livermore, and then we have a small office in Modesto.
And you do a fair amount of work in the Valley as well?
Yes, we do. We handle quite a bit of cases both in Stanislaus County and San Joaquin County.
Joe, is there anything that you'd like to discuss that we haven't touched on? Anything at all that you'd like to bring up? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I mean, you've hit it all the high points, and I really appreciate you having me.
Joseph Cox, thank you so much for joining me today on the Love Thy Lawyer podcast. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Lou. It's been a pleasure to be on. I appreciate it.
That's it for today's episode of Love Thy Lawyer. If you enjoyed listening, please share it with a friend and follow the podcast. If you have comments or suggestions, send me an email. Take a look at our website at lovethylawyer.com, where you can find all of our episodes, transcripts, photographs, and information. Thanks to my guests, and to Joel Katz for music, Brian Matheson for technical support, Paul Roberts for social media, and Tracy Harvey. I'm Louis Goodman.
Yep, I'm on the Wi-Fi and it's full. I'm wondering, do you want me to try to go through the app, or no, not the app, but the second link that goes through Chrome?
Yeah, let's try that. Let's just see what happens if we do that.